Hello all, Ruckus here, bringing you something a little bit different today. I am going to be talking about ramming and side scraping. And what better vehicle to do it in than the almighty KV-4, the Tier 8 Russian heavy tank. It is a behemoth and possibly the best ramming machine in the game. It and its brother, close brother, the KV-5, are unparalleled between tiers 6 and 9. You have to go all the way to tier 10 to find a heavier vehicle with the German super heavy tanks E100, Jagdpanzer E100 and the Morse. And of course that weight is crucial when we're talking about ramming. Ramming in Blitz depends on three factors: the relative weights of the two vehicles involved in the crash, the speed of the impact, and the armor thickness of each vehicle at that point of contact. When two tanks collide, the game creates the equivalent of a HE shell explosion at that impact point. The size of the explosion is a factor of the combined weights of the vehicles and their relative speed. When they collide, damage is then distributed according to weight, with the lighter vehicle receiving the lion's share. And ramming a vehicle where its armor is weakest will result in more damage caused than ramming where the armor is strongest. What that all boils down to is that to be a successful rammer, you want to be as heavy as possible, as fast as possible, and pack a heap of armor up front. And the KV-4 and the KV-5 have that in spades. A maxed out KV-4 tops the scales at close to 107 tons with a 30 km per hour top speed and 180 millimeters of frontal hull armor. The KV-5 weighs a little less, 100 tons, but is faster at 40 km per hour top speed and the same armor profile. So with that in mind, let's run through a few examples and see how this pans out in practice.
Choose your destiny. Flawless victory. Choose your destiny. Flawless victory. Round 1. Fight!
Alright, I admit that was terrible. But humour me because I've got a couple of these to get through. You may recall these clips from my The Year That Was video. I'm going to run them again, but highlight the damage caused and received. Now, focusing that Tiger 2 at the bottom of the hill, I'm building up to ramming speed. I briefly get to 32, but it drops to 30 for the impact, and... well, that was underwhelming. 82 damage caused, 0 loss myself. The Tiger 2 is no lightweight at 70 tons, so the difference in our two weights was not huge. And being a head-on collision, it was frontal armor versus frontal armor. So it certainly didn't hurt to ram him, but not a lot gained.
Finish him!
Welcome back to my Mortal Kombat themed staging area. This time it's the IS-6 versus the KV-4. A big difference in weight now. IS-6 is less than half the weight of the KV-4. Side impact at 30 km per hour means the difference in armor is also going to be greater. So let's see how this one plays out.
Round 2. Fight!
Back on Black Goldville again. Carrick making a cameo in his 30. Jason 5188 is the unfortunate victim for this example. Approaching at ramming speed. I put one into his side and boom! That's a lot better. 234 damage dealt for 32 received. That's approaching what amounts to a free shot considering the alpha damage of the KV-4's 107mm ZIS 24 gun is only 320. Why did I take damage there myself? Not too sure. Perhaps the angle meant more of my lower plate was exposed to that collision. It's still what I would consider a worthwhile trade. One more shot into Jason removes him from the game. There's one tank left. I want it. I'm not going to get there. The KV-1S is going to beat me, but how is this for some fine finesse driving? 107 tons of Soviet steel through the buildings like a boss. Oh, that's satisfying. The third matchup is another tier 8 heavy tank, this time the American T-34. 65 ton machine. It's a side impact, which means there's only 76mm of armor to contend with, and we're hitting at a whopping 34 k's per hour. Let's do this!
Round 3. Fight!
Stage is set. Wintermalinovka is the map. There's the target. MHX 0014. I'm sorry, buddy, but with a name like that, you deserve this. One into the side of the turret. Ramming speed is approached. Boom! 337 for 0 lost. That is a good result. More than the alpha damage of the 107mm on the KV4. And that leaves him a one-shot kill. Bang! Hold up, bonus round, a KV-1S appears, the tier 6 Soviet heavy tank is facing away from me, so it's 60 mils of rear hull armor I'm against. He weighs only 44 tons and he's going to reverse towards me at about 10 k's per hour. I'm expecting some big numbers here.
Fight!
Charge! 246, come on, that was worth so much more. Donker shot off the engine deck. Carrick slams one into him, and this little love tap is all it takes to finish him off. 951 damage dealt for 32 received from those 4 examples. Such is the power of the KV4 RAM. No lightweights in there either. Besides the KV-1S, they were all big vehicles I was against, and it'd be the same deal for tier 9s and most of the tier 10s. So do not be afraid to charge people down in your KV4 or KV5. I've been working on that KV4 RAM clip for about a week now, and I can't decide whether it's funny or just really, really lame. Hopefully it's a bit of both. Okay, let's move on to another tactic that the KV4 performs exceptionally well at, and that is side scraping. Side scraping, you may or may not know, is simply the act of hiding the front of your vehicle behind solid cover, reversing out at the correct angle, firing off your shot, and then driving forward again to safely reload. To do it successfully, that is to get your shot away without taking any return damage, is something of an art form, and certain vehicles are better at it than others. Small, agile, and poorly armoured vehicles are almost always better off flanking or retreating to a more advantageous position, but a slow, heavily armoured tank can make a successful stand against much bigger opposition with a little bit of solid cover, and good timing, and the right technique. When talking about side scraping, the side armour of the hull is key. The more the better, and it helps to have decent turret armour too, because if the enemy can pan your turret with ease, then that is where they're going to shoot. Side scraping works best with regular turreted vehicles, but non-turreted tank destroyers can side scrape if need be, at least in a one-on-one situation, but it becomes almost impossible not to take damage when there is more than one gun firing at you. When done correctly, you'll present your armour at such an angle that its effective thickness will be easily 2 or 3 times its actual thickness, and you can often goad your enemies into wasting shots against it, which allows you, with a little bit of timing, to safely pull out and get your return shot off. Okay, let's look at Game Model 3D's KV4 armor model and see what makes it such an excellent side scraper. Immediately we can see that, as with all tanks, the best armor is up the front. We get 180 mils on the upper plate and 160 on the lower plates of the hull, 180 on the turret and on the commander's hatch up on top as well. So why wouldn't we just face this towards the enemy? Well, 180 mils, it's not particularly well sloped. We can see the upper plate 32 degrees, giving an effective armor thickness of 212 mil. The lower plate is negative 23, the upper portion of the lower plate anyway, for an effective thickness of 174 mil. And considering that tier 8 heavy tank guns have on average penetration values higher than 200 mils, and when we get to tier 9 and tier 10 guns, obviously that moves up much higher, up to 250 for most guns and up to 300 for the tank destroyers, or above if they're firing heat ammo. We can see that 200 mils just isn't going to hold up. So what do? Well, let's have a look at the side armor. 150 mils on both the hull and the turret is incredible. The KV4 and KV5 have the best side armor at tier 8. And whilst 150 mils is obviously less than 200 mils, at the angles we intend to fight at with this side scraping technique, that thickness is going to be greatly increased. Imagine you are in your Jag Tiger and this particular KV4 is what you are engaging at this angle. Your 128mm gun is loaded with regular armor piercing with an average penetration of about 250 mils. It's a huge gun, and we can see that you would have no problem at all in penning both the lower plate, the upper plate, the turret front, or the commander's hatch from this angle. But what if he was behind solid cover, say a building or a big rock, and all you could see was the rear of the hull? Would you have any chance of getting through that? Well, from this angle, that hull armor, 150 mils, is now over 600 mils of effective thickness, and you have no chance whatsoever. No gun in the game has any chance of going through that with heat, AP, or APCR. HE will still do damage because it's hitting and not trying to pan, it's just doing splash damage, but regular rounds will never get through armor that thick. You fire off your shot anyway, hoping for the best. It bounces, of course. He reverses at that angle, takes a shot at you, and then pulls back into cover, giving you that same 600 mils of armor to shoot at. That is the essence of side scraping. Now, in practicality, it's not that easy to reverse out and take a shot. You obviously have to expose more of your vehicle, and if there's more than one tank firing at you, you really have to be careful with your timing. Also, we can see that the turret armor of the KV4, while still 150 mils thick, is a different angle to the hull because the turret bulges out here, we can see. So you have to be mindful of the angle at which you hold your turret when you are attempting to side scrape or hold a cover position. One last thing of note, if we look under the suspension here, we can see that the lower portion of the side armor is 20 mil thinner. It's 130 millimeters thick. And whilst this is definitely easier to get through if you're firing a KV4 from directly side on, from this side scraping position, it's still not pennable. It's still over 500 mils, and shots taken at this portion will, from this angle at least, just detrack you, as we will see in this upcoming little bit of gameplay. So here we are again on Black Goldville. It's a strange coincidence that so many of these replays occur on this map. I'm with Rebel Rocks in his T-34, and we are going to push the hill. It's a tier 8 game, so we can afford to be aggressive. Hamada 123 is spamming the attack button for no reason whatsoever, which is very annoying. So to demonstrate my irritation, I guide him gently into the rock. And I'm going to keep that troll face button there to the left up, and we're going to count how many times I can be detracked for no damage in these upcoming games. Targets acquired as we come over the hill. There's a bunch of tier 7s. The Tiger P puts one through my lower plate as I crest, and that rock face is where I want to make my stand. Tracked out in the open here, no damaging shot, but that allows two guys to plant shots into me, one from down in the refinery, one of those tanks in front. But here we are, this is where we are going to side scrape. 30 only has shots on my hull, no chance of penning from that angle. I can reload, safely hiding the turret here, and just pull out slightly to just get the easiest targets. I am struggling though to hold the reticule on that 30. I should have turned the auto aim off at this point because it's trying to target the SU-100 and the ISU. You can see I'm just managing to keep that on there, get a glancing shot there. Turn it off, and now we're going to focus the ISU. He has the BL-10 gun, the most powerful tier 8 gun in the game. 286mm of AP pan and over 300 for APCR, but he has no chance, just like the 30 did from that angle. As you can see, it's just going to blow my tracks off time and time again. Rebels is charging in, he smells a victory, and that distracts all these tank destroyers, which means I can farm some cheap damage. charge down this ISU and whack. I think I was inside that guy briefly. There's a quote. And with him gone, the game is more or less done. Second side-scraping gameplay is also on Black Goldville, but this time with Carrick, and it's a tier 9 match, which means we have to play a little bit more conservative. See, tier 9s are already spotted up the top of this hill, and this is the rock I'm going to try and use for side-scraping. As I get here, I try and poke out for a little bit of early shooting, and that costs me a repair kit. T-54 is doing the same thing. This is the incorrect way to poke yourself around a corner to engage the enemy, and if I don't block this guy, he's going to get himself killed. So I take his position, and from here I am in a much better spot to absorb damage like I just did then, and once my reload and repairs are done, to return damage. But see that Jag target is focusing on me, which means I really need to be careful with how far I pull out. He was able to pen my turret there, and the timing at which I pull out. Carrick and the M103 to my left are putting some good pressure in, which means I can now reverse out, pick off a nice easy Jag Panther kill. Still soaking up shots from that Tiger 2 up the back. The Jag Tiger goes down, and now they are just down to a T-54, which has not great pen, especially with regular AP, and that E75. Just note the repair speed on this thing at the moment. It's under 5 seconds. I've got the toolbox equipment installed. I've got repairs, the crew skill maxed out. It's at its 5th level. And obviously the crew's at 100%, which means I don't spend very long at all, even from tracked, pinned down in one position. And these tier 8, Tiger 2 and the T-54 are just wasting shots into my side. The E75 has gone down, used a few APCR to finish him off, and that was the last appreciable bit of resistance here. So can I get another ram kill here? I think I might be able to. Cheeky one into the Tiger 2. Charge down this poor little T-54 for the easiest kamikaze award I will ever get. Tracks are knocked off, but again, no damage. 11 times in about 6 minutes worth of gameplay. Trollolololol. Now, if you're still with me, you are doing well, because this has been a long episode. To finish off, just going to run through a standard battle here on Wintermalinovka. Here with Lone Road Ninja. Ninja was one of my first and pretty much my only platoon mate up until about 3,000 or 4,000 games. He left with some real world stuff going on, but he's been back recently, which has been great news. The windmill in this corner of Wintermalinovka is of course a key position. Being the high ground, it commands a run straight down into the enemy spawn and overlooks the cap, so it is important to get it if you can. But if you're in a slow vehicle, it can be difficult, because if the enemy has faster heavies and mediums and they get here first, you will reach this point and find that they're able to shoot at you from cover when you don't have any cover yourself. So if you are going to go to the windmill, you need to go early to make sure you at least get to cover at the same time as the enemy does. And this is what myself, the T-32 behind me, and Ninja in his IS-3 are doing. We're going to push hard to the windmill. And in this case, the enemy gets stalled by our guys down on cap, which is good news for us. So Crest here, going to use this building in front as hard cover for my side scraping, and this unfortunate Jag Tiger 88 has his side facing all 3 of us, and he cops it. My reload is the fastest out of 3, which means I get a first dibs on the kill. And there's just KB5 and the T-43 from before. These guys were the ones wishing everyone a good game, which is always nice to see at the start. Teams giving each other a heads up, saying, have fun. Unfortunately, I'm going to kill them. So, sorry guys. I'm going to rush up to the Jag Tiger and use him as cover. tracked again. I'm going to repair that. I don't want to get caught just here, just in case. So there's a 30 up the back around that cathedral. And from here I can pick apart the unfortunate KV-5 here, whose armor is not holding up well. KV-5 is a well armored machine, but it does have some big weak spots. That one goes through the upper commander's hatch. Now by the looks of it, the remaining enemies have all flanked around through the low ground, the swamp, and are coming up behind our spawn. So we're going to make a detour across the cap circle and see if we can't intercept them. Now speaking of chatting in-game, this is not like PC. If it was PC, I would happily respond to the KB5 there, who had an unfortunate game, and say, bad luck man, you know, this wasn't your game. But it's just about impossible to chat and drive at the same time in Blitz, which sucks because a lot of the time people recognize you and they say hi at the start of a match, and the message always comes through just as the countdown timer has reached 0 and you're driving off to your first important position, and you just can't stop to reply to most people. So if anyone ever says hi to me in game and I don't respond, this is generally the reason. Just can't do two things at once. The Reds are down to 3 tier 6s and they're 30. We are feeling super confident with our 3 tier 8 heavies and a Comet. Climb the hill looking for my first target, and off to the right I'm about to run into the 30, who's going to plant one into my front right hand drive wheel and through the armor. I figure I've got plenty of time to fire off a return shot, but his reload surprises me. That was under 5 seconds. Which gives him about 12 rounds per minute, which means he must have the stock 88 Pack 43, which doesn't have massive alpha, but still got 200 pen, and with that reload speed he must have a rammer and a full crew, so plenty of tier 6s I can focus on. There's no way he's going to come around the corner at me, so I'm going to sit here for the time being and pick apart these weaker opponents. Especially if that Cromwell is going to happily sit there and let me fire at him. SU-100 is coming over for a shot. I hold my turret off to the side until I'm ready to fire. I figured that angle of the turret maximizes your front mantlet and doesn't flatten off that cheek armor on the KV-4's turret. I figure I get the most armor thickness holding it that way. Lucky shot on the flat Panzer. There's only the 2 tank destroyers left now. Ninja's going to claim the SU-100 in his IS-3, and T-32 is climbing the hill behind me, which means he's going to bait that shot, and that lets me climb over the hill. My angled frontal armor is too much for the stock gun on the 30 there, and down he goes. And so concludes what was a marathon episode. I do hope some of you found it educational. It was fun to make. Up next, I've got some exciting gameplay in a few tanks you've never seen me drive before, and after that, hopefully a continuation of my review of the German Morse line. So stay tuned, guys. Peace!